when people are powerful, they can use many things, including the law, to oppress. So we who love freedom and justice, we who understand law, should be able to sense when somebody is trying to misuse the law. The law in itself is great. The law is powerful. The law is great, but it can be misused or misapplied and become a tool of oppression. You can have a criminal justice system that frees the guilty and convicts the innocent. So we in the media, we in academia, we in civil society, we in politics must stand against that. And we have to discern. We shouldn't let people use the cloak of whatever means to kill people. Like the guy died from extensive brain injuries. What a brutal way to kill a person. And the same happened to a lot of the people. And all these people, either they were killed because they were black or they were killed because they stood up for black liberation. So we have to remember these histories. It's very important for us to always remember history. We always have to remember because, you were saying something this morning about 2070. For me, 2070 is not about whether we have money or not. What would be sad is for our children not to remember where we've come from. Yesterday, I was driving on the Liberation Road to Shiashi. The last tunnel is like a bridge that the train passes over before you get to Shiashi. There's a mural, a drawing of about 7 women. Anjage, Ya Santua, and all these women. And I said, well, somebody has taken the time to remember. Theodore Alkun was also there, right? Some of the women who have helped bring Ghana where we are. Then you talk about today, 28th February. Sergeant Ajeti. Esther Oklu is there.
Okay, good.
All the women you would mention, I think they are like the 8 greatest women in Ghanaian history. Still best. Some Jiage, sorry I didn't have all the names. Esther Oklu was there, industrialist. Theodore Alkun, the national flag. Ya Santua was there. A couple others. What I'm trying to say is that in 2070, the tragedy will not be whether Ghana is third world, first world, whatever I want to call it. To have a country where young people don't remember where we've come from. They don't remember the sacrifices people have made. Think about the 3. When the flooding came, Fred Duho went to one of the towns in the Volta region, and then he went to Corporal Atipo's house, where he's been buried. All right. Now, Atipo, Ajete, and Odate, their death for me is what began the independence struggle. Because it was when Major Imri commanded for fire to be opened, their death is what sparked a lot of things, including the riots. Nico Abnaboni's boycott, then the jailing of the Big 6. You see the trigger. So even though they didn't necessarily go for an independence thing, what they did has now brought us the freedom we have. So 2070, let's teach our children to remember history. Let's remember where we've come from. Let's remember some of the evils that have been done to us. So that when we become privileged, we also don't use that privilege to oppress other people. It's very, very important. So just to remind people, today is 28th February. 3 veterans lost their lives at the 28th February crossroads. Right? That's just in front of the castle. They were agitating for better pay because they said they had been veterans. They went to fight in a world war and they had been mistreated by the British colonial government. They were fighting our fight. Who would have? I'm sure they didn't know that their death is what would have triggered all the things that led to 57. So I'm playing Diallo this morning to remind you. As black people, we have many, many challenges. We've been at the bottom of the food chain for years, economically, socially, politically, and sometimes we are our own enemies with what we call self-sabotaging behaviors. We have to reflect on their death and change positively. Learn to work hard. Learn to love our neighbor. Sacrifice for the nation. Teach our children history. All right? Some of our kids now, because of the system, we are teaching them, taking them to schools that are doing Cambridge and all these things, Pearson and things. So you're going to have an elite who don't even have, they can't even speak their own language. Now, they are even saying that very soon BEC, Ghanaian language is optional. Think about it. In the year 2070, you have a president who can't speak ever, can't speak Twi, can't speak Ga, can't even understand it. How are we going to be free? Do you get it? If you have a Ghanaian president who can't speak his own, because the elite now, they go to GIS, SOS, TIS, all these schools, and they are doing all kinds of things. They don't even, I'm not sure they can even speak your own language. They don't even understand anything. So it's a problem. Because All the people who have done well post the past 100 years, it's deeply steeped in culture. Look at the Japanese. They refuse to let people use English to oppress them. Even the Chinese, colonized by the Japanese. The Koreans. Everybody has had to assert themselves. And they've not done it by abandoning who they are. They've done it by knowing. I always say that in life, progress is knowing what to keep, what to throw away, and what to, I forget the third one. But there are some things you keep. Yes, let me repeat that. It's a nice saying. It says in life, you need to understand what to repair, what to throw away, and what to keep. Because advancement is like cleaning your room. It's like knowing what to repair. There are certain aspects of our behavior that we have to repair. There are certain things that we have to keep. There are certain things that we have to throw away. Wisdom is knowing which of the three. I think the Japanese know this. The Chinese know this. The Vietnamese know this. Does the African know this? Does the Ghanaian know this? I think that the issue of Ghanaian language should be strongly looked at. Last week was Mother Tongue Day. And then the story came that they said they wanted to make Ghanaian language optional and they came to deny it. But I've seen a letter that confirms that there was actually a contemplation to do this. So imagine in 2070, a population that can't speak their own language. And these are the elite. This is the thing about elitism is that in every society, it's the elite that determines what happens. Those who have had the period of education, even our independence, it was the elite, the chiefs, the people who had privilege. All right. So if you have an elite who can't speak their own language, you have a problem. You get it? So it's something we should be concerned about. That why would somebody even contemplate that Ghanaian language should be made optional? When research has even shown, I heard people say, I think I heard one professor of UCC say that the research is clear that when you teach people between 0 and 5 in their mother tongue is the best way of training a child. If I'm wrong, correct me. So if 0 to 5, mother tongue is the best. Yet an educational system is contemplating making Ghanaian language optional. Did you get the point? Last week, somebody sent me a story about a guy called Amu, one of the first, is like a 15th century philosopher from Ghana. Yet when you read all the philosophers, Immanuel Kant, all these, don't even mention him. But that Amu guy was one of the key guys. He was trained in Austria or Germany or something. So you see, part of the development issue is narratives and history. So they would deliberately remove him from the list because they want you to feel that you don't have any history. Your history began when the Europeans came here. So like my son was reading class 1, they gave him some notes and he said, Don Diego de Azumbaja, 1842. The kind of those things I read. He's also reading the same thing. I said, who told you that? I said, the Portuguese came first. I said, why are you starting history? Why are you thinking about the Portuguese? So when the Portuguese didn't come, like how do you have a history that doesn't go before the Portuguese came? And you are teaching my son in class 1 that some Don Diego de something came to set up the Jago, and he's chewing this thing in his head. I said, no, bring me the pamphlet. Why? So before 1482, there was nothing. And instead of us changing it, we are bickering over who should get credit for free SHS. You see our problem? Why shouldn't our kids know how we were organized? The ancient Ghana Empire, the Mali Empire, the Songhai Empire, the Ashanti Empire, the Benin Empire. We need to do this because development is as much an issue of software as it is an issue of hardware. And the software part, we have allowed it to be corrupted and eroded. Everybody is everybody wants their child to go abroad. So let's all do Cambridge system, let's all do Pearson, let's all do IB. But you are going to raise elite who have no connection to their society. And if you don't have development steeped in culture, it's not sustainable. Do you get it? Because culture is the way people do things. So if you are trying to superimpose a certain way of behavior, I always tell you that sometimes when I watch Parliament, it's funny, not to denigrate it. We are trying to imitate a British way of resolving issues without taking cognizance of how we do our things. That's not to say let's go back to traditional society. But even in the way we adversarially attack each other, traditionally, if you have a case and you bring it to a chief, you don't go and shout, Sky. You grew up in a chief's house. If Nathan and Bernard have an issue and they go before the Awomefia. They don't go and shout and say, no, you make your case, he makes his case, and they do the investigation, and they come and judge. If you want to appeal, you appeal. But we say we want to do British colonial, whatever. So now we've come to Parliament. Go and see the standing orders. You get it? So when Bagbin and Co. are trying to bring back some of, I think Bagbin's idea of even decolonizing the way he dresses is very significant. It's like, you know what? This thing, we have to build it in our own image. Why should we wear what they wore? Do you get me? We can use the principle, but we don't have to dress like them. For what? So last week he dressed like the Sultan of Sokoto. Let him feel free.
Yeah.
But that's a liberated man. You get it? Because for me, he's trying to tell you that beyond the way I dress, we can also be master of our own destiny. We don't have to imitate. Accuracy in knowledge is not mimicking what you were trained. It is being trained enough to question whether what you were trained is good. So you see, a lot of times we feel like if the person can get 7 A's, he's intelligent. Getting 7 A's is good. It means that you are good at copying and reproducing and applying what you've been taught. But real education begins when you say, I have enough knowledge to know that what I'm being taught is crap. Do you get my point? So there's a level beyond what is called excellence. That's liberty. That level is saying that, yes, you've said this and this and that. I will take this, but this one I will not take it. Very few people reach there. So let's encourage our kids. So one of the things you try and do is when your kids are talking to you and they are learning these things, talk to them. Challenge some of the things they are told in school. Because some of the things they are told in school, someone just puts it in the curriculum and the person is dead. And you just repeat it. Oh, why should they learn about Don Diego de Azumbaja? Who is that guy? Class 1 who? Don Diego de Azumbuja or whatever.
I'll tell you something. You were talking about how we lived as a people, right?
Yeah.
There's this TV series I watch a lot. It's on Akwaba Magic. It's called Nana Koto, right? And even though it's Akan-centric, of course, it talks about Akwemu and blah blah blah. But in watching it, I was fascinated because then even though you cannot tell that it's been scripted and everything, it gives you a bit of an inkling as to how we lived before the Europeans came. And I can see that we lived with a lot of order. Right? The chief reigned supreme. He had a council of elders. They would deliberate on matters. There were edicts. There were principles. There were things they respected. There were things they did. And they lived, Bernard. I looked at that and I go like, really, this is almost like modern living. Yeah. At the heart of it is some of the things we do. How we resolve disputes. Like you said, people take their issues to the chief's palace. Yep. 2 parties sit and they listen to the chief. They listen to all sides. They come out with a resolution. But you can find that culturally we lived a certain way. We did certain things. We arranged our matters. We lived life in a certain order, our own order that we crafted. Maybe we didn't decode, but at least we crafted it to a point where we knew what we were doing as a people. So I'm happy that you've mentioned, and it's important that we remind ourselves that before all of this, we were living a certain way. So if people like the Chinese and the Japanese especially have kept a lot of those guiding principles, even in the midst of advancement, modernity, development, and all of that, then it means that as a people, as a country, as a continent, we need to critically think about getting that balance right, remembering who we are at the core of it, that we are Africans, we are Ghanaians.
Yeah.
But we can add the modernity because times are changing. So it's a bit of duality. Knowing that duality. That duality.
So the idea that Ghanaian language will be made optional, we reject it. It should be compulsory.
It's almost like when I went to study for my master's and I discovered that, think about it, people who were taking on an international relations and diplomacy course, Ghanaian foreign policy was an optional course. It stunned me.
How can international relations and Ghanaian foreign policy is optional?
We are in Ghana. Why are we learning Ghanaian foreign policy to be optional? No.
Some professor has written it and is dead. We're all following it.
No way.
Which also means that sometimes leadership failure is when you're a new leader in a space. Sometimes you have to take on atrocious, outmoded, useless policies. Do you get? Maybe he came to meet it. Like you said, why should somebody doing international relations
in Ghana
take foreign relations as an optional course? You get
foreign policy. Ghanaian foreign policy. How is it optional?
It's something. So we need to be very clear about certain things, right? The idea that it's subtle. Oh, there are too many subjects. They are learning too much. Then take out French, or take out something else. You get it? But don't tell a child that Ghanaian language is optional. And with those of us in Accra, it's tough. You see, you grew up in the Volta region. So Ewe comes to you naturally. We, those of us in Accra, our parents mix Ewe with English. So the way we even communicate to our kids, a lot of English in it. Right? The home is great. I was at Vivian's father's funeral, Thanksgiving service on Sunday, Bethel Presby Church. Oh my God. This was Children's Day. Sky. Children from age 5 to 15. Everything impeccable Ga. Memory verses, recitations, poems. The one lady even hosted a radio show in Ga. Pure Ga. I mean, the Ga where they are talking about Bejianoto and things. Like proper Ga, not Yanima bag kind of Ga. Like proper. You know what Bejianoto means? You know what Bejianoto? Preparation or something? Proper Ga with proverbs. So, and I was happy. And I said, these children, somebody has taken the time to train them because they were quoting verbatim. Pure. And I'm saying that development has soft side. All right? When I look at the conduct, and this, and I try every time, I'm not able to get the word. I'm trying to say that, you see, you are a lawyer, you understand procedure. The point is to know its virtues and to use it. All right? So the Malaysians used the British system to advance their society. So I'm not saying let's reject English language or let's reject even British common law. That's not what I'm saying. But it must be applied within certain limits and not forgetting certain things. Do you understand? Why is it that when there's a chieftaincy conflict in the Yana case, why did they go to the Asantini? You could have gone to a normal court. Sometimes the normal court doesn't contemplate that some cultural nuances. Do you understand? It doesn't take into consideration some histories. Which is why the traditional society, the traditional authority is also very important in Ghana. We must even approach parliament like that. We must understand. Some people are even calling for an upper chamber. Why not? You go to Britain, House of Lords, House of Commons. Some of the point of the House of Lords, according to their system, a second opinion. Do you get it? We may think about that. A house of traditional leaders, religious leaders, whatever. Parliament is very divisive. The 137 has shown that it's very possible that one day we can have a hung parliament. If you have a hung parliament, how do we resolve it? Do you understand my point? We need to constantly think about how we do things in order to improve it. So when you ask me about 2070, it's not whether they'll be interviewing me on footprints or not. Oh. The people who will be running Ghana, will they really know who they are? Will they understand? I am what I am because people help me. Most of the things I talk about, when I interview people, they give me books to read. Nana Kobunan Ketia, he will say, hey, young man, go and read this book. Come back and let's talk. People, Chinwenzu, people will call you, Professor Atu Kwesen. Do you get it? People will help you to, because you occupy a big platform. So you cannot just be eloquent and ignorant. So it wasn't formal education that made me what I am. People sometimes will say, go and talk to this guy. Go and sit in his house for one. You know, once you deal with the guy, realize that, so there's more angles to this. Because when you occupy a big platform like hosting a morning show, you cannot afford to be ignorant of history. You cannot afford to be devoid of the challenges we face. You cannot afford to misunderstand some things. Otherwise, you perpetuate it. A lot of times when journalists do stories, people come in and say, how do your people do this? It's very possible that the next generation of journalists we are growing may not know anything about history. Yesterday, we were complaining about an article one of our guys wrote. If you look at the system that produced you as a journalist, the kind of training you went through, these days, it's very easy to just start writing anything without any context. Now there's something called influencer. So somebody can talk absolute crap. 5,000 people are liking it. And then the person is giving money by a company to do influencing. Then our kids say they want to now have their own YouTube channels. With no understanding. So the internet has come. And instead of us using it in a profitable way, we are using it to rather expose our ignorance as a society. And we are empowering stupidity in the name of influencer. Do you get me? Like, what kind of society are we creating that now people can even occupy a space, 50,000 people are following him, and he's not talking any sense. And somehow he's a role model. So investors are inviting him to come and speak because he has 50,000 followers. No sense of history, no understanding of the economy, nothing. It's terrible. I fear for Ghana if we don't get our act together. And it starts in the classroom. Don't take Ghanaian language out. Under any guise. Don't tell me it's optional. It has to be compulsory. It has to be compulsory. Imagine Nathan Obodai, you can't speak God. Imagine how tragic it would be. Yeah. That you are called, they don't even know why you are Obodai and why your father is Tobo and why you are, you get me? Why won't you know? You need to understand this. Because that's what makes you who you are. So it's not that you went to Harvard and you got a first class. You will not get respect just by passing the exams. You must know who you are and what it means. I always envy Richard Sky. Every time I'm talking to Sky, he will come up with a proverb. He will always draw me back to traditional wisdom. That's what makes him unique. I didn't have that. You know, he will always draw that. And the proverb, doesn't it make sense to you?
Yes, it does.
So I'm just saying that this guys of Ghanaian language that they want, no.
We reject it.
Under any pretext, it must be compulsory. In fact, I even think that this may seem like an overreach. Schools that are even private, to the extent that they are training Ghanaian students, Ghanaian language must be part of the curriculum, even if it's not examinable. So even if you say you are doing Cambridge or whatever you want to do, fine, it may not be an exam, but make sure there's a Ghana English teacher in the school to teach them Ghanaian language.
Exactly.
Yes, because we have UCC and Winneba to train them. So you cannot come and do a course in Ghana and say, as for us, they won't learn Ghanaian language. No, we must not allow this. Because you see, it's not just STEM. Educhum, it's not STEM alone. No. It's not STEM. You can do STEM, STEAM, STORM. I'm telling you. You see, you take it for granted. Oh. Where was I? I went to, this week I went to 1 week, 1 weeks. I went to one in Dome and I went to one at Oman FM. Even there, I was wanting. Because you see, you can speak plenty English. When you appear before people, you have to know how to conduct yourself. You have to know how to move. You have to know what to say. You have to know how to sit. And when they come back to you, you have to learn those things. That's what makes you a proper Ghanaian. Otherwise, you are just an educated nincompoop.
Yeah, that's it.
So let's get things straight. We cannot circumnavigate or circumvent the cultural aspect of development. We have to appreciate our history. We have to know our language. We have to train our kids properly. Having kids that are butter bread eating children, pass all the big exams, when you ask them questions, F1, then you're looking at you. F1, I don't speak that language.
Can you imagine that?
What nonsense? You don't speak which language? Then you're looking at your face. Yeah, not really. He's gone to, not really. Nathan, if by 2070, the people who run Ghana, because I wouldn't be on this seat, if the guy hosting this show, the guy who's president, does not appreciate our history, does not understand his language, we are lost forever. And they will not forgive us because it will be our fault. We have to make sure our children can speak our language. We have to make sure they know our history. We have to make sure they know the real issues for development. Even if we can't solve it today, let's empower them that by 2017 they will do it. That's why we shouldn't convert all these state of the nations into political razzmatazz. There are bigger issues at stake. The speaker was trying to tell them. He says we have visitors in our midst. It's not about NDC and people shouting. No.
It's just misbehavior.
Where is Ghana going to be in 30 years?
Crude conduct.
That's the issue. That's the issue. And one of the things leaders must do, like media, is to keep the main thing. I will not be distracted. I will not be distracted at all. We have to know that our development challenges are deep-seated. And we cannot westernize it away. You cannot imitate your way out of underdevelopment by copying somebody. You must have a true sense of who you are. You must be whole in like a relationship. If you are not a whole person, you can't enter a relationship. If you are dysfunctional as a person,
there's no way you can add somebody.
So if you are not properly constituted as a society, going to get an education is not going to help you. The Bible says, what does it cost? What is the benefit of education for a fool, seeing he has no heart for learning? He's saying that if you educate the fool, you are just wasting the situation. He must have a properly constituted mind before he can be educated. So we have to know who we are, so that when you now educate us, we will be useful. Otherwise, we will become educated thieves who speak good English and wear suit, go to church, but are criminals. And we don't want to create as a society, which is why we must always go back to the basics. Which is why we always find different ways of saying the same thing. This thing is a new thing I'm saying. We have to keep saying it until now. The day you say better than saying it too much is the day you start listening to it. So yeah, let's not dare take Ghanaian language out of the curriculum under any pretext. We will resist it. We must ensure, even if it's one Ghanaian language, I prefer it. Even if they won't learn Ebe because there's no Ebe teacher, let them learn Ghana or Twi, it's fine. It's better. than to say that they won't learn any Ghanaian language at all. No. That one they won't agree.
You see, what is most annoying about this is when you sit at home and they come and tell you that, oh, we want to do Spanish class, Chinese class. Meanwhile, you have not, first of all, started from where you are coming from. That is what you need to appreciate, first of all, before you even start talking about, let me add something to it. So that when I go with you to somewhere and I want to tell you something, I cannot tell it to you there. I have to pull you away because everybody else is listening. When I could just switch and I know what I'm telling you. And you see, the most annoying thing is that people believe that it is the new way of elitism.
Yeah.
That, it is okay when they don't speak
You have to
your
learn
language.
your mother tongue.
It's
very important.
pathetic.
Yeah.
Very important.
You would have
to speak
failed
your mother
miserably if you don't appreciate these facts. Holidays, they should go to the village and go and play around.
Yeah.
Let them go and play with their kids.
Let them go and meet their cousins.
Exactly.
They should go and carry nake.
It is very important.
Yeah.
They should go and learn what it means to resolve those disputes when they go to the riverside, to fetch water, break the pot. Sometimes, look.
You are frustrated.
Charlie, we took some of the people to the food bazaar thing we do.
Yes, they're back to the village.
Charlie, these people saw Ayipe.
And they didn't know what it was.
They said, well, Iyake, what is that?
They wanted KFC.
They want KFC.
we have to ban that in our house.
We need to appreciate that we are a people from a certain place, first of all.
Yeah.
Before we now add modernity onto it. Yeah. Nkrumah, he appreciated where he came from.
Solid.
And when he mounted the podium to speak to the people, the context was clear, the language was precise, and the English was on point. You see, and he appreciated the value of custom. He addressed the chiefs, the people. Look, many people don't know that when you go to the home of a widow or widower, you don't go hugging, shaking hands. No. Yeah. There are ways of doing it. You avoid that clearly. Yeah. But many people have not learnt it.
Because they are watching TV series.
Exactly. People don't know that when you meet a chief, regardless of the setting, you have to show deference. People are standing with their cap.
No, they want to take selfie. Who born you?
So one of my colleagues was asking me the last time, why is it that anytime I'm wearing a cap and I see Samens or someone of a higher authority, I remove it before I attend to the person. Then I was explaining that is culture. That is the rule. The origin of Medekuku is so that you are showing deference. Exactly.
So Fai is hot.
Yes, you are showing deference to a higher authority. Yes.
It's the same thing.
But you see, these days, he's from the US, so he's come with a cap
worst one
on.
is they turn the cap at the back.
And then he's talking to them because he's
Then he has some cheap perfume.
And then
he spray.
So like, we are
not really.
Can you imagine? We are destroying our culture. Yes, culture is dynamic.
Not really for Oduna. Let's do take exam.
It's sad, man.
Yeah. So we have been motivated by Diallo to talk about language, culture, history, and all of that. We're basically reflecting on a lot of things, right? Sky was asking me, who even mentioned 2070 today? Was it you or?
No, it was in one of the
newspapers. Yeah, the president said that 30% of our power will come from nuclear in 2070.
Yeah, by 2070.
I think somebody asked, where will it be in 2070?
Yeah.
And then
the Diallo song.
Yeah, so I feel like, I'm going to do a few things. One of the things you need to do for your kids is to give them a reading list. All right? Let them definitely read Chinua Achebe, African Writers Series. It gives you a proper context of the African situation. Chinua Achebe is part of your essential reading list. If you haven't read Antilles of the Savannah, Things Fall Apart, A Man of the People, all those things. God. You need to read all those things, right? I'm looking for my friends who are good in philosophy. Like, can you get me like an abridged Kwame Jechi? Just give me a simple, those are the things we don't do. Aesop's fables, there are variants of it. Shakespeare. There are variants of it that makes it easy for people to use. You know, so I was talking about Anton William Amu. He came up with the theory of the mind and the body, 1730 something. A Ghanaian philosopher, first African to get a PhD. You know, he's a proper philosopher. Where are his ideas? Where are the Nkrumah essentials for modern reading? Where are the Kwame Jechi essentials? You know? What's the name of this guy? Papa Kowakwe, Niyade Clerk. You guys were first class philosophy students. You know, because there's no way, Sky, if I ask, you know, my challenge, like the philosophy, there's nothing. You know, where do we go when we are faced with a national crisis? What do we do to start it again? What do we believe as a people? You know, it's very important. You know, and it's not Christianity, because you see, there are American Christians, there are Korean Christians, there are African Christians, but there are things Americans do to make them Americans. There are things Chinese do to make them Chinese. There are things Africans need to know to make them Africans, because everything must be put in context. So we need to understand who we are, where we've come from, and that's not happening. You know, and knowing that influences the way we approach issues, because even the way I keep telling you, the way we approach even parliament and governance is wrong. We are trying to superimpose a certain system on ourselves without taking cognizance of who we really are. It's because we have not exalted the place of thinking. We have not put philosophers at the forefront. We don't celebrate ideas. We are not interested in the whys. We are just doing what? Why? We need a questioning society. Why are people so poor in Africa? Why are we so rich in natural resources, yet our people are at the bottom everywhere? What is the problem? How do we deal with it? We have to confront those questions. And it's funny how we spend all the time discussing unnecessary things. You think that of all the things in the world I should talk about, don't you think the state of the black person is the most important issue? How many times you get it being discussed? Tune into radio station. What are we talking about? You know, we pick the symptoms without dealing with the root. So today, free SHS. Tomorrow, state of the nation. Next week, Black Stars. Next 2 weeks, road at fintechs. All of those things are dysfunctional because there's something that's not properly constituted. The person himself and the way he thinks about himself is wrong. So you have to spend a bit more time thinking about that too. Do you get it? Otherwise, you're just going to run around in circles, because you can solve 2,000. It's like somebody who's sick. The sickness can present as a headache, can present as high temperature. It can present as dizziness. You can solve the dizziness, but that doesn't solve the sickness. So paracetamol doesn't actually solve any sickness. It just deals with the symptom. The symptom maybe we have to remove something from your body, because that's the thing that's inside you that's causing the sickness. So if you spend all your time just dealing with the symptom, you haven't dealt with the root. Our underdevelopment at its root is a philosophical mindset issue. Do you understand? So you can do macro stability and do IMF program. But if the way the people spend, like the culture of the people towards money, the mindset of the people is not corrected, you will go back to IMF 17 times and they'll keep going till 2070. Because time in and of itself doesn't change anything. So you can change NDC to MPP to CPP to PPP. You will still be going to IMF because the basis for the way you manage your resources has not changed. So we have to confront it. So if you go to the public court, it must not be used to just discuss the symptoms. Why are we so resource rich? Cocoa is now almost $6,400 per ton. We are even now going to be number 3. Ecuador is about to overtake us. Why? Why are people selling their cocoa farms for galamsey? How do they appreciate value? Why do people... You understand? Like, there's a story about Naboth's vineyard. How a man who was poor said he would not sell his vineyard to a king for whatever price. The king said, He says, no. The vineyard represents who I am. When we read the Bible, we don't even understand what he's trying to say to us. Yet you sell your farm to some Chinese guy to do galamsey and gives you money and use the money to go and buy a car. It means you don't understand value. So your educational system doesn't need to teach you mathematics. It needs to teach you how to think about what is valuable. That you can bring a Chinese person and he will give you dollars and you will sell your heritage, cocoa farm that you had from 1885 for galamsey. It means there's something wrong with your constitution as a person. Do you get my point? That's what the real issue is. But we don't talk about that. We don't think about that. We don't think about what university does for a person, what education does to a person. If you don't question what you've been taught, you are not educated. Everything you've been told, you must question it. Because the evidence of whatever you believed is what you are seeing. That every year, people have to come and put money together to help you solve your macroeconomic challenges. Your people, I don't even want to go into the numbers. I don't have time. There's just too much underdevelopment in the society. Poverty, not just a lack of money, lack of options. Because poverty is not just lack of money, lack of options. Where people are born by teenage mothers and they also give birth as teenagers in communities with no hope. And we have had 30 years of democracy, we've not been able to change that. What's the best way to change that? Yes, educate them for free, 100%. Spend all your money on it. How do you improve it? Healthcare, NHIS, it has to function. These are the things you need to do in addition to helping them rethink who they are. Because until we begin to look at Kwame Nkrumah, I said, if the black man, he said we have to show the world that we are somebody. It takes pride to develop. Because if you don't have pride, do you understand? It's like me. I don't want to be last in class. So I study not because I want to pass, but because I don't want to disgrace my parents. You need a certain level of pride to do well. So if we don't have pride that, why are we going to UN conference, G20, whatever, and we are just sitting there? No, we must have pride. And that pride is what will drive you to think deeply and pay the price, because there's always a price for development. We are not prepared to pay the price because we have not thought deeply enough about our underdevelopment. And we are comfortable because we are selfish, because we are thinking about ourselves, our family, and our friends. And we think that when we are okay, the society is okay. I can't be okay. What African culture teaches me is that you are because I am because you are. So if you have 5% controlling all the resources and everybody else is poor, then if you are a proper person, you cannot be happy. You get me? So when you see people who are begging for money, always looking for money before they vote and things, don't just blame them. We have created a society where we've given poor people no option. People can't even take medical tests because they can't pay for it. Women are giving birth to plenty kids because they don't have agency over their body. All of these things are development questions. And it's because of the way if you feel for your people, you empower them. But because if they are supine, if they don't know anything, they are malleable and you can exploit them, race, politics, religion, ethnicity, you get a vote, it means you're not a proper leader. Do you understand? Because a leader must liberate his people, make them free, so that even if you're not there, they can fight for themselves. I don't want my kids to be other bees, that when I'm not there, somebody come and beat them. No. So sometimes you have to show them tough love. Every time he's falling down and crying, say, no, stand up and fight. Every day you are playing football and fall down, you are crying. No, I'm not going to help you. If you don't rise up, you can't say, I love him, let me hug him. No. Sometimes you have to let him fight. Because when you are not there, if you always hug him, when you are not there, he will crumble and he will be defeated. So if we love the people, let's empower them. That's what we should do. So whether it's a media house you have, whether you're a university professor, you're a politician, your job is to empower the next generation with knowledge, wisdom. Do you understand? Not to enrich yourself and then get some cheap popularity and get 1,000 followers on social media. Forget that. Because in 100 years, nobody's going to remember you anyway. If you think about the long run of what how many of our historians do you even remember? How many MPs do you remember? From Nkrumah's time, how many of them? How many can you mention? How many of Nkrumah's ministers do you even know? So it's not about being a minister. It's like I want to be a minister. How many of Nkrumah's ministers can you mention? How many? How many of Buzia's ministers do you remember? It's about contribution. As I mentioned, and Diagi, Esther Okulu, they were not politicians. Theodose Okun was a politician. Those who change history don't have to be politicians. They have to sacrifice to do what they were given to do. We saw that mural. Drive through, when you're going to Shiasis on the right, they do 8 women. I think maybe 1 or 2 were politicians. But they all did something that we will be proud of forever. So I don't need to be a politician to do anything. Use the platform you've been given to change people's lives. Then you will be rewarded. History will be kind to you. You can be MP for wherever. I don't care. Who is the MP for Senya Breku when Nkrumah was there? Do you know who he is? We don't know who he is. So this clamor to be politician is just funny. For what? The real purpose of life is to live history, touch history in a positive way. So it's not about politics and elections and things. We are made to believe that it's all about power. What are you using the power for? What are you transforming? Change people's minds. Liberate your people. If you're a public speaker, whatever job you are, teacher. There are teachers there was a teacher in Motown. He has changed so many people. There's a generation of Motowners I know who are all doing well in banking. They said there was a teacher at the time who mentored all of them. We don't remember his name, but as a leader. You understand? He hasn't won any, he hasn't built a big household. But all those guys between 1989 and 1990, whatever that he trained, all of them, so that teacher's work is still speaking because those guys that he mentored are leading. That's leadership. But here we are looking for immortalizing ourselves, winning awards. It's for nothing. In 100 years' time, nobody's going to remember you because what you did was of no consequence. And I don't want that. We all have to decide today that if you are educated in Ghana, you owe it to people to educate them too. If you are educated in Ghana, if you've been privileged to go to school, it's not for you to use to go to the village and rush. How many more people can you put? Vafiam. Go back to where you came from. Teach people. That's life. That's leadership. See how he's passionate about the Volta region. The Volta flooding. Went to Galosota. Giving. Why do you think he's doing that? Because at the end of the day, it's the heart you have. If you've been properly constituted as a person and you've been privileged, you know that you owe it to society. It's not even because you are a philanthropist. You owe it to the next generation to give back. Those are the leaders we need. Those are the politicians we need. Not people who are from our hometown who give us money. No. Look for people who feel for the people, who will pay the price. Leadership is expensive. Nobody's going to give you funds. Sometimes you can be a one-term president just because you want your people to be better. That's what life is about. It's not about coming to win, enriching yourself, making as much money as you can, flying first class, and buying all the properties in Ghana. For what? Where you are going? What are you going to use properties for? You get it? We need a change in mind. We need a change in mind because our development is a software issue. The software has been corrupted by our own bad practices, worsened by colonialism, even education, religion, all west and mess the person up. You must be free, I'm telling you. And if you don't begin to free yourself, how do you free yourself? First, accept your truth. If you don't accept your truth, right? Because it is knowledge that sets you free. If you don't accept your truth and you are living a lie, you believe in a lie, it's a delusion. Accept that as we sit, you have not done well. Then take advice on how others have done it. And then implement change. Change is not something you wish for. Change is something you implement. You must put yourself on a program. Sometimes you have to take yourself this week, no coffee. 1 week of no sugar. That's how to implement change. You must deny yourself. He wanted to lose weight. There was a long time he wasn't eating meat. He was only eating vegetables for a year. It was painful, but he did it. That's how you implement change. You don't implement change by just reading about it and talking about it. Ask him. You see where I'm going with this? So as a society, and I see the media as the mirror. The media is the platform for public discourse. It's not, because everybody listens. We have to set the right tone for the country. So even on a day like when they do State of the Nation, I'm not going to play back politicians who can tell me what they think and insult each other. No, for what? We're not the State of the Nation. Don't you? So let's use the opportunity the president has created with the State of the Nation to rally support for development of a positive mindset. Elections will come, will vote. They will do their campaign. But we always have to think, why am I doing this? Why am I following this example? Why do we do the things we do? Is it just for money? You think if it was for money, I'll be here? Is it the best place to make money? No, it's not. These are the things we must think about on a day. Because Caleb, as Samuel always says, I will not be here forever. I don't know how long I'll have this medium. And I don't want to regret one day and say, oh, I had radio and I didn't use it for anything positive. Every day just doing politics. No. They didn't give me this platform to kind of sit people here can be arguing about their parties. That's not why I'm here. So let's all go back to implement change. And it starts with ourselves. And it starts with the kind of people we elect, the kind of things we prioritize, the kind of things that we give value to, the kind of things we put on our TV stations, the kind of images we depict to our children, what we consider to be success, the kind of things social media is promoting. All those things determine the value of the next generation. And if the next generation doesn't have the right values, leadership is a values issue. It's a question of leadership is not just macroeconomics. Leadership is values. If you don't have the right values, selflessness, discipline, sacrifice, honesty, truth, modesty, courage, those are also important. It's not our party, foot soldiers, comparing records. Those are necessary for some things, but very limited. The real long-term development is more value. If you run a regression between development and values, you will notice that there's positive correlation. For every society, what are the values of Ghanaians? When you put on TV today, what are we showing? People are doubling money, lotto, Unnecessary things. That's what we are telling kids. How do you succeed? A child takes a stone to hit a 10-year-old child for Sikedro because a TV presenter has told him that the quickest way to make money is to do human sacrifice. And the National Communication Authority and the NMC are sitting there watching. All kinds of people have TV licenses who have no business owning a TV set, let alone a TV license. And we are sitting down watching this craziness happening around us. How can we advance? Let's wake up all those who lead NMC, NCA. Let's see Ghana as a project to be developed. Let's treat it with urgency. If you regulate a space, regulate it with diligence and with patriotism. Don't give TV license to the highest bidder, because criminals can also pay for TV license. Do you get the point? So don't give TV license to the highest bidder and then second time and say you are surprised that children are doing the things they are doing. It's what you are permitting us, allowing them to live the way they are living. Leaders are failing everywhere, and people are not stepping up. He said something. What's his name? He said we need courageous leaders who can stand up for what they believe. He stood up for what he believed. How many of them have been able to do it? When he said, I don't think this law is good, he said it. Even if you disagree with him, he stood up and said his own. Where is your own? You see the point I'm making now?
Let's take some of your comments coming in 054-9986-996, 054-89986-996. That's the WhatsApp line. And we go to some of those comments. This one is coming in from Samson, who says, good morning. I had my master's in Malaysia, and Malaysian culture was and is compulsory in all fields of study here. This one says, Bernard, God bless you for advocating the teaching of local language. We reject our very being and hate ourselves if we disrespect and reject our language. Philip in Hachu says this morning, try and find the burial place of Sergeant Ajete. You will weep at what you see. This one says, Bernard, you have just settled the debate of the foundation of Ghana, the sacrifices of the victims of the 28th February events, and those before them should not be ignored. Certainly, Ghana wasn't founded by one individual. It's coming in from Kofi in Tema. And this one is coming in from Lankwantanan district. And it says, good morning, Bernard. Ghanaian language is now optional. Yesterday, I went to a GES meeting concerning the 2024 BCE. The director of GES in that district said the candidates are supposed to choose either Ghanaian language or French. Can you imagine what's happening? I think we have conflicting signals coming in. At some point, it said that it was supposed to be optional. At some point, we are told that the whole thing has been withdrawn. I think we need some clarity on that. And this one from Nas says that, Bernard, I owe you a bag of crunch pastry for speaking about Ghanaian language today. It's a sad thing, huh? Our educationists should check the language policy we have. Parents are speaking English with children proudly. It's a shame. The ability to speak English is not a measure of intelligence. This one is from C. Mens and says, hi, Bernard. My view is learning Ghanaian languages is not a formal setting. Learning Ghanaian languages in a formal setting, i.e. in the classroom, is really not effective. It just becomes a subject like any other, where students decide to sit in class because it's compulsory or to cut. Mother tongues are the best ways of learning anything. Okay, this one.
Learn from home.
Okay, I best learn from this one. From who? Okay, it's without a name, and it says, "Good morning, team. If any society is denied its culture, society will be wasted inevitably. This goes far beyond tree, ever, etc. Even the God we worship in this country is imported. We are going nowhere fast." Sami says this morning, Bernard, by they claim before the advent of colonial masters, Africa was in darkness, and darkness is not subject matter of history. So Africa had no history, which is very, very sad. And this one says that here is Hugh Trevor Roper, right? A British scholar for you. Perhaps, in his quoting, in the future, there will be some African history to teach. But at present, there is none or very little. There is only the history of Europeans in Africa. The rest is largely darkness, and darkness is not a subject for history.
What have we done about that since you wrote that? We've had over 60 years of independence, many vice chancellors, many professors. Why are we still quoting what this crazy guy said? Like, why do we do this? Like, so is he the wisest man in the world?
No.
All those who've gone to school, who've done history, are they telling me that this is the only thing that, or is it this man who wrote all the history we have? No. You know, we need to always move beyond what has been said by one person, which has justified where we are. But there's more that can be done. Anyways,
Nkrumah responded to that. The Independence Day speech is enough response to that absolute balderdash.
Exactly.
Good morning, Bernard. I'm so happy about the conversation. You know, I feel so bad whenever I visit Akachi, my hometown. The old lady speaks Ewe to me, and I'm unable to respond in Ewe. Oh, Charlie.
Go and stay there for 1 month.
This one says, Bernard, on the language issue, the one who kicked against the use of the local language at the early stage of the basic level is now being considered as a running mate. Oh, really? Ask implementers of local language projects how he treated them when they interacted with him at conferences and his office. He said it should rather be French and not the local languages. I worked on a local language focus project that suffered from this posturing. Okay, so who are you talking about?
We can do the two. Of course, I can understand if the government says we are surrounded by French-speaking. It's great if we push people to learn how to speak French, but not at the detriment of our local language.
Charity, they say, begins at home. We believe so much in Gotanyure Homanyaga. You know, you go and prepare nicely outside, look very fine for everybody, but inside, what benefit does it give you if you are able to rattle French?
What shall it profit a man?
Exactly.
And you if he gains the whole
you have
world
met your kings
and loses his own soul.
You have, and then you can't have a conversation with them.
What shall it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul?
Yes.
You can apply that to what you just said. Yeah. Please read more comments.
This one says, good morning, Bernard and team. I share your sentiments on our culture fading away. Of all our studies, it is history that is most qualified to reward our research. This one is coming in from Malcolm. This is coming in from Nene from Greater Estates. This one said, Bernard, what you are saying is very right. The irony of all of these is that in our teacher training colleges, education and knowledge acquisition is taught within the framework of cultural disposition. Would-be teachers are taught excellent principles of education beyond chew and pull. Fortunately, when the graduates enter the classrooms, the game changes. Everything focuses on passing the exams. It's always difficult for new teachers to transition from what they were taught to what pertains on the ground. Parents need some understanding of facts. Our government schools have some excellent teachers, but they are deprived of good students. So we conclude that they are not good. We need to work on our understanding of education. This one says, so while Parliament is adopting the use of Ghanaian language, we are taking it out of our educational curriculum. So sad for Ghana. Good morning, team. It's coming in from Kwame Beje from Afienya. This one from Kwamina Bill Gates from Tesano says, good morning, people. Those days, my grandfather would sit us down and teach us about Kwame Nkrumah when it's this March. We will learn Nkrumah's song when he was in prison. And then here's what Kwame was.
Kwame Nkrumah Odefiasi Sesiara.
Okay.
Na Nisunsum Reye Juma.
Okay, I see. Nisunsum near
Nisunsum his soul.
Spirit? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I still remember this and will teach my kids. Our Ghanaian culture, especially our language, must never go extinct. This one says, good morning, Ben and team.
Morning.
Even our fathers and mothers abroad in the white man's country are teaching their children to speak their native language. In the US, the EP Church in one of the cities teaches their children the language because they don't want them to get lost. This country would be doomed if this is what is implemented? The policy that we should make it optional. Okay, that's what Afi is talking about.
All right.
And this one says that, good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
I was born and bred in my grandfather's house in Accra. I've always been grateful that my grandparents ensured my parents spoke our language with their children, even though they rarely go back to our ancestral home. This one says that the annoying part is that your 4-year-old asks, "What are you saying?" Can you imagine that? When you speak your local language, you can't blame a child always glued to the TV, tab, or phone watching and listening to English or Chinese rhythms. Or is it rims?
Rhymes.
Right. Animations for speaking English or Chinese. If that is not his or her mother tongue, we need the media and especially government to support, else our local language will just die off. Good morning. Well, your comments have come in via 054998699. You should keep them coming in. Let the conversation continue. When you go home, back to your houses, please make sure that something changes about how you run the home. It is not pretty that your kids will go rattling everything in English and not being able to speak their mother tongue. It could be ever, Akan, Ga, whatever, Hausa, whatever it is. At least they should understand where they are coming from.